Hello, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update, brought to you by Ag Carolina Farm Credit. My name is Eric Snodgrass, and I'm a senior atmospheric scientist and co-founder of Agrible Incorporated, and I serve as the director for undergraduate studies in atmospheric science at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. Well, I wanted to start off this video by showing you the storm reports from the 18th of July all the way through the 22nd of July. In total, over 1,200 reports of severe weather, and North and South Carolina certainly had their fair share. Now, some of the nastiest storms that went through the region brought in some strong straight-line winds, causing some damage to some fields, but certainly across much of the United States, we not only saw a tornado outbreak in Iowa, plus some strong winds that, of course, did the tragic capsizing of the duck boat in parts of Missouri, but a very, very active week in terms of severe weather. Well, we got to talk about the flow pattern that set this up because it's going to be important as we move forward. But first, let's do this. Let's look at the last 30 days of precipitation expressed as a percent of normal. Now, we do this a lot, but let's do a little bit deeper analysis this time. We know that overall, if you go way back to the beginning of the season, it's been very wet across the southeast. We've really seen no major regions where we've had drought move in. So that's why the drought monitor right now is kind of free and clear across the southeast, especially in the Carolinas. But we have had some time periods where it's been dry. Now, I want to quickly take you out of the Carolinas and talk about the Corn Belt, all right? We have a couple of places that are stressed. We have this little section of Indiana, northern Missouri. So you think about the corn and soybeans grown in North Carolina. I'm just going to tell you something. Much of the rest of the Corn Belt right now looks very, very good. But we do have some pockets where things have been quite dry. Now, if I come right back to North Carolina, I want to talk with you about 3 different locations. Now, you can see here, they get right in the center part of the state, near average precipitation, flanked on either side by some drier conditions. Well, let's go look at those stations to try to understand this. In Raleigh, check this out, Raleigh, North Carolina, currently above average on precipitation when you look at how much is accumulated since April 1st. But we have had recently some drier conditions throughout the month of July. So see how flat that is right there? Not a lot of precipitation over the last 10 to 15 days. So we've dried out a little bit, but still, over the long haul, we're above average on precipitation. It's a very similar picture in Greenville. Although, look at this, very wet April, May, and early June, but things really dried out as we got into June and the start of July. See how things kind of plateaued right in this area? So we're working our way back toward normal precipitation, but things have been dry over the last 30 to 45 days. And it's a very similar story in Greensboro. We can see that while we're a little bit below average on precipitation, we have had a stretch of really dry weather here in July. Now, I'm not worried about this showing up big time on the drought monitor. And I'm really not worried about this in the next few days because of all the precipitation that's on the way, plus the stuff that we just got. So let's get into that. First, though, remember this. Through the first part of July here, July 1 through the 21st, overall, near average to below average temperatures. That includes quite a bit of cloud cover, some northwest flow, and at times some precipitation. That's why we're seeing along the coast here near average to below average temperatures. It has not been a scorching hot summer across the southeast. It has been across parts of Texas, but not here over the southeast. Well, here's the setup. This is that deep plunging trough that brought in quite a bit of shower and thunderstorm activity. See it right there? Going through North Carolina on Saturday and again on Sunday. This is the trough that's brought in the cooler weather. This is going to be the trough that keeps the unsettled weather in place across the southeast. There it is. Look at that. This is a water vapor image showing you how much moisture is thrust into the upper atmosphere by these big thunderstorms. Well, we better dig into this forecast, okay? That upper level trough, see it sitting and spinning here on this 24-hour radar animation? That upper level trough is sitting here, and look at all of the showers and storms moving across the Carolinas. We need this. We need this rain to come in to help alleviate some of the drier conditions we've had. And we are not done by any stretch of the imagination. You see, when we look at the pattern this week, we're looking at the left on temperature anomalies, getting us through the end of the week, and on the right, that's precipitation anomalies. And while parts of the Corn Belt will be dry, we are going to have a flow pattern setting up that comes right off the Atlantic Ocean, very persistently bringing quite a bit of moisture, and there'll be a boundary hanging out right here that will lift that air, giving us the chances for precipitation throughout much of this week. As a consequence of that, plus repeated cold fronts and that deep trough sitting here over the eastern half of the country, we will see much of this week with near average to cooler than average temperatures as well. Where's the heat? Texas, to the Pacific Northwest. And we'll talk more about that in just a few moments because it's important for North and South Carolina weather. What are we going to see? Well, on Monday, the low pressure system will still be sitting somewhere over Georgia. And remember, we saw quite a bit of hail in parts of Georgia too. Well, the circulation around that low is going to help feed a lot of moisture along the East Coast, bringing in a lot of precipitation in the region I just highlighted. We will have on Tuesday and Wednesday cold fronts trying to catch up with that stationary boundary sitting down in this area. And it may not be until Thursday this week that we finally get some drier air trying to get down into the southeast. But because of that setup, which I just kind of drew for you quickly over there, look at what our temperature anomalies are going to be doing for the next 10 days. Just keep your eyes focused down here. What you see is no sustained time periods of much above average temperatures. Watch it again. This gets us out the next 10 days. We spend much of our next 10 days getting cooler than average weather rather than warmer than average weather. So July is certainly going to finish on a cool note, and it's really going to make July 2018 probably finish overall cooler than average. All right, our flow pattern that's making it so wet this upcoming week is right here. Now let me pause this and show what I'm talking about. Big dome of high pressure sitting here, clockwise flow around it. The boundary sits right there, and that's going to be the focal point, lifting the air. Repeated bouts of colder air, cooler air for this time of year coming in, slamming into that boundary. And the result is we're going to get a lot of precipitation along that boundary. So here we go. Starting off on Monday, I'm going to animate you out the next 60 hours. Let's get out the next couple of days. Here's total accumulated precipitation as projected by the NAM model. And what you see here is a pretty large swath of North Carolina getting at least a half, to some locations getting well over 2, maybe 3 inches of rain. It's going to be one of these things where we're going to have to watch the radar carefully to see which locations get the thunderstorms that train. That means they follow one another, continually being a rain to the same location. When we look over the next 10 days, watch this. Let's just play this out and kind of see how active things are going to be here in the southeast. Ready? So this starts us off. Here we go. Getting into Monday. And while we do see a couple of time periods in there where things get a little bit drier, watch it again. Here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It may not be until Wednesday or Thursday we start to see some drier air pushing. Remember, I showed it to you on a previous slide. Some drier air pushing in. But watch this. The models are attempting to bring this feature here across the center part of the country. So maybe the end of the week is drier for the Carolinas, but another system coming through next weekend, bringing in, again, another chance of precipitation. Now, what does all this mean? Well, when we kind of put it all together, here's your next 10 days of total accumulated precipitation. It's going to be wet. Now, what I love about this is a good time of year to be wet. Restore the soil moisture, reduce the heat stress on the crops, and prevent the drought from settling in this time of year. I love it when the Bermuda High is way over near Bermuda and not over Atlanta. That's a good setup. Right now, though, just to let you know, we're also not seeing anything major brewing in the tropics in terms of tropical storms or hurricanes. So all of this precipitation is just flow around that big area of higher pressure, just pumping moisture in. And the long-range European model says maybe over the next 10 days, because we have the rain coming up over the next 3 days, then a little bit of a dry down toward the end of the week, then the weekend system that might get here toward the end of the weekend. Well, put all that together, we're looking at widespread 1 to possibly some locations 4, 5, or 6 inches of rain. And we need it throughout much of the Carolinas. Now, to finish this off, I want to show you what the overall flow pattern of the atmosphere is going to do as we enter the month of August here. Check it out. Ready? Troughs and ridges. As we get started, here's how we're going to finish up our last week of July. We're going to be seeing a trough digging in here into the Great Lakes, multiple chances of cooler weather coming in, and a ridge building out west. As we continue to animate this out, let's keep watching here, we see that pattern really tries to hang on toward the end of July and the beginning of August. Look at this. This is 51 different model runs, and it's showing you their agreement. And what are they agreeing on? Trough over the Great Lakes extending all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Heat, massive ridge out west. That flow pattern does not allow for major heat and big time dry weather moving into the Carolinas. It just doesn't. You see, we got to have this whole flow pattern shifted about 1,000 miles to the east or west before that happens. This is very favorable for having ideal growing conditions as we finish out the month of July and start August. Now, speaking of starting August, watch this. Do you see how things flatten out? You see, this is where we got a little bit of model disagreement, and that's something that I'm going to have to watch and keep you up to date on, because it may suggest that once we get past the first few days of August, the ridge over the east may slide back to the west a little bit, reintroducing some warmer conditions, but that's pretty far off, maybe 12 to 15 days out in the forecast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with persistence here. And persistence tells me we're going to be seeing wet conditions over the next 10 days and overall cooler than average temperatures. Not cold, but slightly cooler than average. And we're going to keep a very close eye on all of this as we press into this month of August, which is typically a time of year that we start to really get concerned about drought. But remember, it's also a time of year we have to watch the tropics very carefully. We'll do it all for you each week in these video updates. And I look forward to giving you my next update coming out next week. Thank you from everybody at Ag Carolina. I hope you look forward to that next update coming out next week. Thank you.